All right, guys, it's time for the Next Level Guy Show, a men's interview, interest, and improvement-focused podcast featuring interviews with the greats from all industries to help you better your life. Each week, a new episode features an interview with one of the greats, covering all aspects of their story, from life hacks to tips and protocols that have allowed them to live life on the next level. We then highlight concrete action steps that you can use to improve your life. And now, your host, Ian Dawson Mackay.
And today's guest is Ida Zetterström. Ida is a European drag racer who lives and breathes racing. She's the 2019 Super Street Bike champion and is currently the European record holder for top field dragster. She grew up in her dad's workshop, spending hours at the racetrack with her family as her father raced classes such as Pro Stock and Pro Modified, or worked with other race teams, and the track quickly became her favourite place. She started driving at 8, and at 16 she got her Super Comp Dragsters licence. In 2017, she started racing in the class Super Street Bike, the European version of the US class Pro Street Bike. In 2019, the team competed in the Scandinavian Championships with a new bike known as Lucky Number 13. In the third race of the championship, it ended with the team's very first win, making Ida the first woman to ever win the Scandinavian Super Street Bike class. The final race of the year ended with a second place finish in the event, and the team also stood as the overall winners in the Scandinavian Championship, making Ida the first woman to ever win a Super Street Bike Championship. In July 2020, Ida became the first woman to ever clock a 6-second run in the Super Street Bike class, and all classes driven on street tyres and without wheelie bars, doing so at 6.985 seconds and 205.9 miles an hour. In the first official FIA event of 2022, Ida and the team set a new European record of 3.782 seconds and were the first team to ever clock a 3.7 second pass in Europe. And she's only getting started and is one to watch. And now, let's get to the interview. Thank you so much for coming on. It's an absolute joy to have somebody that I found on social media, was blown away by, and you've got a real badass job. But for people who maybe don't recognise your name, could you give a quick introduction and tell people what you do, because you've got a dream job?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and thanks for asking me to be on. My name is Ida Zetterström. I'm a drag racer. I wish I could say that was my work. I'm hoping one day to make it my work. I have a company on the side working full-time in marketing too, but what I do on the racetrack is what sets my soul on fire, and I drive a top fuel dragster for RF Motorsport, and we currently have the European record at the moment. So yeah, I have a really fun time with my team on the track, and one day I hope to make it my work, because like I said, that's where I love it.
I don't know. And was that the race? Was it 3.872 seconds?
That was 3.78. Yeah. So that was the European record. It was also the first time someone has ever gone below 3.8, like the first 3.7 in Europe. So that was a really exciting event for us, and I think everybody was just thrilled.
It's phenomenal. I mean, you've broken that record. You've got so many accomplishments. You were the first person to ever go onto the podium in certain classes and stuff like that. And I love how you still consider yourself a rookie. You know, it's still yeah, I'm just getting started, and you're going to go places. But I'm really interested in your inspiration, because you were raised in a sort of small island just off between, is it Sweden and Finland?
Yeah, I was raised in Sweden from the beginning. I grew up in Järfälla. It's a bit outside of Stockholm. So I'm born there, and I lived there until I was 12. Then we moved over to Åland Island, where I live now. My mom is from here. My dad is from Sweden. So I'm half Swedish, half Finnish. The island where I live is a Finnish island, but we speak Swedish here. So it's a little bit mixed. So I'm definitely half Swedish, half Finnish, and
that's a good mix to be. I mean, I'm all 100% Scottish, and I'm completely weird. So
well, so am I. So the nationality doesn't fix that.
So do you think, like, because like we were discussing before we started, like that coming from a small place like that, you kind of focus on your passions. You know, it's you get a lot of times we don't have much to do, so when you pick up a hobby, you were around your dad in the workshops and your tools and engines from like about a really young age. You started getting into racing at 8 years old. Did your upbringing in that small island really build up this love of racing, love of engines, working with your dad, etc.?
Yeah, well, I think most of the like inspiration or so on to for me to become who I am is being at the racetrack, being in the garage with my dad, and just having the whole family being out on racing. So I mean, since I was 12 when we moved to Åland Island, I had already raced for some years, and I have been at the racetrack since I was 3 weeks old. So when we lived in Sweden, we went to races mostly around Sweden, but also Finland, Norway, and so on. So that was I think like being at the racetrack, growing up around it is definitely one of the main factors that I fell in love with the sport so early. But also like me and my sister had the same upbringing. We've both been at the racetrack with mom and dad, and we have both been in the workshop. But she has not raced, and I wanted to race instantly. So it kind of just shows how different you can be with the same upbringing. I mean, she still loved it at the racetrack and everything like that, but I hear a lot of people saying that usually when kids get into racing, it's only because of their parents being in it, and of course, it's a big factor of they kind of helped me fall in love with it, so to say. They gave me the possibility to be there and to fall in love with it. But I think there has to be something more for you to want to pursue it and to continue with it.
I mean, it's perfectly true. I mean, it's like I'm similar with that, like with my brother. I'm into podcasting and that, and he's into being a bit of a dick. It's, so you've got this kind of, you can completely different personalities but I like that where you have parents who, if you want to be involved in it, you can be. If you want to merge your own path, and I like how that they encouraged you, but they didn't force you into their path.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, normally when people say like a female's career, drag racing would not be the first one. And Sweden, I was surprised. I didn't think that was a sort of an epicenter for racing, but there's a whole series of racing, and there's all these phenomenal classes: bike racing, drag racing, etc. Did you sort of encounter resistance when you were younger? I mean, I know, like coming from Scotland, as some of the younger girls, like I was at school in the 80s, they were kind of pushed away from potential male-dominated industries. It was accepted that they would do certain things, which is complete BS. Thankfully, now it's changing. But did you encounter any kind of resistance from friends or people saying, no, don't go down that, you should do this, the safe career?
No, I have to say, drag racing in general is so open to all, genders, ethnicities, and just age. Whatever, you can be 8 years racing, or you can be 90 years racing, and
I see that on your social media.
Yeah, and that's kind of the good thing about it, and also what I think is so great is that when you start at 8 years old, they never separate women from men. We always race together. So
awesome.
Like when you grow up like me, being at the racetrack and being around the young kids racing, they were a mix of the 8-year-olds and 18-year-olds and the girls and the boys, and it was never strange. So I think that's why it kind of never been any pressure put on the fact that you are a girl, just because it's been so normal from the beginning, at least for us that are in the drag racing industry. Of course, looking from the outside, you can easily say, oh, it's not that common for women to be in it. But to be honest, there's a lot of women in drag racing, and there's a lot of women dominating, setting records, being just awesome at what they do. And when I speak to people, sometimes when they may not be as involved in drag racing, or just don't know that much about it, and they say, oh, so you set a record, and so how many girls were it in the class? Yeah, well, we were 3 girls, but they were also this many boys. Okay, but but you always only raced with the girls, right? No, we race with girls and boys. Like if I set a record, it's not a women record, it's a record period. Like it's a it's a record for everybody. So that's what I think is so good about it. And I think I can't say I had any resistance. Like of course there's always going to be someone that doesn't think that girls should do male sports like that, or find it dangerous or so on. But I mean, I also did gymnastics on quite a high level when I was younger, and I have hurt myself way more doing gymnastics than I've ever done doing drag racing. And I think that says a lot. I have friends, that does horseback riding. I'm like, that's dangerous. Like yeah, no, it's drag racing is safe.
When you've been near a few horses, and you kind of go, bloody hell, you realize how small and insignificant we are compared to a lot of wildlife.
Yeah,
because I mean, I can remember back in school, we had to fight to get a girl who used to play football with us every single day, and she wasn't allowed to play in the school football league because she was a girl.
Okay.
And it was this silly kind of belief about that's a girl sport, that's a boy sport. And thankfully, it's all changing, and people are getting more involved. And I said to people, "Oh, I'm interviewing this really amazing drag racing." Like as soon as I said you were female, what? And it was the people had these beliefs that there was only certain sports you could do. And I love how you're becoming an ambassador for the sport. You're encouraging so many people into it, but you're also opening in people's eyes that this can be a sport for everybody. Because you remember your social media, was she 7 or 8 years old? And she's on a little kick-ass...
little girl, Indy. Yeah, she's awesome. And she also races both the Jr drag bike and the Jr Dragster. And I mean, now she can try them both and she can see what she likes best. When I started, they didn't really have Jr drag bikes. It was only Jr Dragsters. When I went over to racing bikes, when I got a little older, the thing is, there is a slight difference, I would say, racing cars and racing bikes in drag racing, being a woman, just because there haven't been as many women racing bikes as there have been women racing cars. So I have to say there were more attention to me being a woman in the sport when I did race the bike, especially since there hadn't really been a woman that did it so to say on that level that we did it. That's why we also, we set records. We were the first women to ever win an event, first women to ever win a series in the series that we ran. So I think it was bigger attention on me being a girl on the bike side, but I also think it's because there were no real bike class for girls to start in a young age, and then the step to starting in a bigger class can be quite high, so to say. But now when the junior drag bikes are getting bigger and we see a lot of good girls racing in the junior drag bikes class too, I think this is going to change in the upcoming years, because we've already seen it changing from, let's say, 8 years after I raced Jr Dragsters. They started coming out with the junior drag bikes, and we saw some girls getting on it, and those girls, they were successful in higher drag bike classes after that. So I think it starts with the kids, and it starts with what we show is possible, and just don't make it such a big thing, so to say, to be a girl in it. And then we're just going to get them leveling up throughout the ranks, and I really look forward to seeing it.
And was that what you kind of noticed? Because when you've gone through the sort of the junior ranks, you've gone through the racing the cars, the top of the top classes you can go, you've rode bikes, etc. Is that what you kind of noticed, that when you look back at it now, that people were more surprised that there were so few girls? Or, was there something else you noticed about how the races were set up, or how it was kind of male dominated as they got there? Or do you think, why do you think people are kind of like, ooh, a girl racing? Why is that a big deal, do you think? Compared, because you've gone through all the classes, raced some amazing people. What have you noticed about the changes as you've progressed up the ranks?
Well, like I said, I think the drag bike was the biggest difference from being a girl from the other classes. When I hear guys being surprised that there's girls in the car classes, it kind of surprises me, because there's been girls, and really great girls, for many years, but usually just shows that maybe they haven't been following drag racing for as long, so they didn't know that there have been a lot of girls from earlier years. And
Well,
of
they're too
course,
busy stuck in their caves, aren't they? Being cavemen.
but like on the bike side, I do get that it got more attention and it was questioned more, just because there hadn't been that many girls. Of course, there had been some, but there hadn't been that many. And I mean, we set really high goals, and we wanted to be kind of, I mean, for me, it wasn't about being the first women to do anything, or like setting a standard for women or whatever. For me, it was just, I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be the fastest. I wanted to beat everybody. And it kind of like this girl aspect of it kind of just, it just happened on the side. And I was just, when we set a record or when we won an event or something, it was always kind of extra pushed that it was the first time a woman did it. And in the beginning, it kind of bugged me, because I was like, so what? I'm a woman. Why do we have to, why do we have to talk about the fact that I'm a woman when I won? But then when I also saw, other women reaching out to me or coming up to me saying like, the fact that you were the first woman doing this, or you're the first woman that won that, you were the first woman to run a 6-second on a no wheelie bar bike or so on. And they said that inspired me to get into running a no wheelie bar bike, or that has inspired me to run this year. That's when my eyes kind of opened, and I got more like open to, I wouldn't say I promote that I'm the first woman to do anything, but if someone else does it, I don't get bugged by it, because I feel if that helps someone else to want to get into this, then that's exactly what I want. Like, I want more women to see that we can do anything. And just because they're a guy doing it and no girl has done it before, like, just because no one has done it before, that's not an issue. Someone has to do it. Just get there and do it. And I know, like, on the bike side, there was a little bit harder being a woman from the beginning, just because it's harder physically, like, to be a woman on the bike. Like, when you go 350 kilometers an hour almost, you're literally hanging on to the handlebar, like pushing yourself on the bike to stay on it, and you have to still correct the bike when needed and so on. And that's really physically demanding, while I think drag racing is a really mental sport. Like, the mental part of it is so big, but on the bike it was also a big physical part of it. Like, I remember having my legs positioned a little bit differently when I had new foot pegs put on, and I couldn't really get my knees in, which made it impossible for me to like squeeze onto the bike when I was going down track. And the wind kind of pushed my leg out, and when you push your leg out, you start to steer the bike. So like, the bike started steering in another direction, and we had to change the foot pegs and so on. So there's a lot of those things you have to think about, and I had to hit the gym to get more strength and kind of be able to do it. But it's not impossible. Like, for me, that's just a part of the challenge, and it's kind of something that made it even more fun for me, that that there were so many aspects of it that you kind of had to conquer to be able to get good at it.
Because that's what bugged me, was like, everybody kept talking about, oh, she's female this, she's a female race, and I was like, no, she's just an amazing driver. She's just broken a record. Why does it matter what your sex? And that's what there was such a complicated, and I was thinking, well, sadly there hasn't been somebody before you that's kind of shown that there's, so you can be that person that breaks down that wall, that BS stereotype that, like, oh, only men are good drivers, blah, blah, blah. You're showing people how amazing you can be, and you're inspiring the next generation of kick-ass drivers and stuff. And that's what I think you're doing so good as well. You're always on social media, you're always communicating, you're getting out there and meeting your fans and encouraging them, and you're inspiring them to then go and be who they can be in their life. And that's such an amazing thing. But when you said you found your happiness at the racetrack, at what point did you think, this is just going to be a nice hobby for me? But at what point did you realise, hey, I'm bloody good at this? And now you can make this as a career. You can start getting sponsors. You can win races. You can go up the ranks and up the grades. Wait, what is it about the racetrack that really inspires you? And was there a point that you thought, yeah, this is for me, this is who I am?
Yeah. Yeah, well, before I get into that, I just have to say, like, with the females in the industry, if you're looking at what I do now with like Top Fuel, there has been a lot of kick-ass women doing that before me. And I mean, the champion the years before has been Anita Mäkelä. We have had, they just had a new champion like 2 days ago in NHRA US. Brittany Force, she has been a champion before. We have Erika Anders over in US, has done it several times, for fifth time in pro stock. And we have, Angel Sampey. We have so many good drivers, women that have, just killed it and crushed it. So for me to be the first woman wasn't anything big in the drag racing industry as a whole. It was just in this class that we run. And the thing is, with Super Street Bike that I run, it's like a super ultra hairy drag bike class. We have like 750 horsepower, running no wheelie bar bikes, street tire, and it was kind of in that class I was able to make a move and show that there's a space for women too in that class. But like in drag racing overall, women has crushed it for years. And I think you mentioned social media, and I think with the social media we are able to show it more and more. I think if you look back 20 years ago, there was still women crushing it, but if you look it up now, you have to kind of find articles about it. I mean, you can't look on Instagram on the same way to see it, but there's been women crushing it for a long time.
Definitely.
But yeah,
I think this is the first time, like you say, I would go and find drag. Like I was putting in like looking at things, and I came across you on social media. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. And then as I start finding people who you said were role models, I was like, whoa, watch this video of them. It's click, click. And it's like you're saying, you're now getting a chance to be in people's lives, to get eyeballs on the amazing stuff you do. Whereas maybe before it was like a sort of more like a smaller sport in a way. It was like it had to be passionate fans. And
it kind of depends on where you are. I think, like in US, it's like drag racing is the biggest. In US, it's the biggest like drag racing area, so to say. And over there, I think people have known about women in drag racing for a long time. But I do think over in Europe, it has been a smaller sport. And like you said, you have to be kind of diehard fans to know everybody that's running and who has been moving up through the ranks throughout the years and so on. But yeah, drag race, like Instagram, social media overall, it kind of gives us this portal to show off what we are doing and why we are loving it, and that we get to inspire people on the same time. That's just fantastic. And I think that's how we grow, and that's how we get more women into the sport, more kids into the sport, and just more people overall.
And I mean, is that what you're enjoying now, or do you just still enjoy that, that race, the moment before the lights change? What is your happiness at the racetrack? Is it just being part of it all, fine tuning the engine, getting the maximum effectiveness out of this engine, working with your team, etc.? Or is there a particular part of it that makes you like truly happy to be racing?
Yeah, it's hard to just pick like one thing. It feels like if you're a hardcore drag racing, it's your lifestyle, it's your whole like, I don't know, it's your whole being. It's not just going to the racetrack a few times a year. So the thing is, for us over here in Europe, our race seasons are so short, so we don't have as much track time as they do in US. If you look at the races in US, you look at like an NHRA series, they have about 22 races a year, and then you race Friday to Sunday. You're at like actively on the track on that time, and then the other is traveling to and from races and so on, which means that you are gone a lot during a year, and you kind of are in this racing atmosphere all the time. But for us over here, our season starts like in late May and it ends in early September. So we don't have that many events, and we have a lot of downtime, which is for me the absolute hardest, because that means you're away from the racetrack, you're away from all the like-minded people you meet at the racetrack, you're away from the rest of your race team, or however your setup may be. But it's I have to say, like, for me, I love all part of it, but when I get to the racetrack, like when I'm there, when I'm around the car, around the bike, like we have the tent set up, and you start to feel like the weekend is ready, I feel very at peace. Like, I can be really nervous, of course, especially when there's a lot on the line. But I'm really at peace in myself. I don't feel nervous about what I'm gonna do. I feel nervous about, performing. Like, if there's championship points at stake, and you really, really want to, just, be the fastest and the best, and you know what it's like. That's what you're nervous about. But I'm never nervous about, running the car, being there, because I really feel like that's when I think the clearest, or so to say. Like, when you're actually in the car, on the bike, you make decisions without even thinking about it, and it just comes natural. And when you're in the car starting up, you don't have anything else in your head than just what you're about to do. It's like everything else is just gone. You kind of zoom out. But for me, of course, the actual run is such a thrill. But I wouldn't want to have it without anything, like everything else around it, because when everything comes together, you have your team, everybody is trashing really hard to get, the absolute best performance out of the car, and us as a team and everything. That's what it's about. And the same when we race the car, or when we race the bike, we built them ourselves. So like my boyfriend Kim built the engines, my dad, we worked chassis. We had a guy in Finland, Arto, he did all like the electrical systems and ECUs and everything like that. And when we came together and worked during the off season, that's also some of the best memories. And like it's the highlight. Everything that has to do with racing. I mean, not a day goes by that I don't work with my racing in some way. But that part of the day when everything I do is racing, that's the highlight. No matter if it's having a sponsorship meeting, if it's setting up a presentation for a meeting with a I don't know, potential partner or whatever it is, as long as it has to do with racing, it just gives me this feeling of, I don't know, happiness, and it makes me just want more. Like, it makes me just want to work harder, and it motivates me just by working with everything around. I'm just so eager to like what we can accomplish and what's still to come. And I think that's kind of what just drives you. Like, I'm so far from done, like so far from what I want to accomplish. So what motivated me, it's kind of like I have only got started,
I love that. I mean, it certainly comes across your love and passion for the sport. And I think that's the thing into it. It's like somebody says to you, like, why do you keep talking about that? Why are you so into that? And you're like, it becomes part of your being when you find your passion, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's really hard to describe it. It's all the little things, the highs, the lows, the different emotions and stuff. And I love how that you have like your dad in the pit crew, you're building engines you're on your downtime with your partner, your mom helps with the media. You've made this into a family thing, that you've become a family with your pit crew as well. But for people who maybe don't recognise how drag races are set up, how are they structured? Like, how do you compete? Is it literally just lining up and sort of going faster than the other person until you got the fastest person? Or how for people like myself who maybe not 100% sure up on drag racing, and you made a fan out of me, but how are races set up so we can understand
them? There's a lot of different classes in drag racing, so that's also the beauty of it. I mean, you can be someone that just wants to come with your street car, and there's a class for you, or your street bike, or if you want to modify something a little bit, there's a space for you. But there's also space for the ones that just want to go absolutely mental and get a few thousand horsepower out of your car, or like us that actually go up to 11,000 horsepower and want to just squeeze everything just out of it. So that's the beauty of it. But the thing is, the track is a quarter mile, so most classes run a quarter mile, but then there's also a few classes like the Jr Dragsters, they run an 8 mile, so like that's half track, and that's because there's still like a entry level class for the kids to learn. So they run the 8 mile, and then we run 1,000 feet. So we in Top Fuel and also Funny Car are the only ones that run the 1,000 feet. 1,000 feet is just because they took it down from a quarter mile to 1,000 feet years ago because we started going so fast. And the thing is, when we go so fast, we also have to stop, and the racetrack gets a little bit too short if we don't have more space. And also, it puts an enormous pressure on all the parts in the engine and the cars itself, going that fast for a longer time. So we run 1,000 feet. But usually, when you speak about drag racing, it's the quarter mile or 1320. You usually see 1320 associated with drag racing, and 1320 means it's 1320 feet. So if you see that somewhere and wonder what the heck is that, it just means that it's 1320 feet, and that's the same as a quarter mile. So that's the track we go down at. We always start from a standstill. There's no rolling start or anything. It's a standstill, and we have a Christmas tree. The Christmas tree kind of has bulbs on the top. You lit the first set of the bulbs, and then you lit the second set of the bulbs, and that means that you are in the position where you should be lined up. If you look back many years ago, they were a guy standing in front of the contestants, just making sure they were on a line, and then you had flags. But we have moved over to the Christmas tree, and that makes sure that both drivers are in the right position. And then you have a Christmas tree lighting up. And this is also different. The pro classes use a pro tree. A pro tree means that there's 3 yellow bulbs, and they will all light up at the same time. And that means it's go time, because if you wait until it's green, you are too late. And then there's also the sportsman classes. The sportsman classes has a sportsman tree. The sportsman tree means that these 3 lights, they are falling down. Like there's first one, and then the second, and then the third. And you should usually go on the third. It depends a little bit on how quick your car reacts. If you go before the light starts, then you will have a red light. And if you have a red light, you're automatically disqualified. Many classes, the so-called pro classes, that's, of course, you have a lot of rules within your class on how to set up the car or what's allowed to run or not. But then those pro classes mean you run as fast as possible. So you could say the fastest one wins, but it actually, the first one crosses the finish line wins, which means that reaction times also come into play. Mm-hmm. Because you can be the fastest one but still lose if you weren't quick enough in the start. If the other person runs away, quicker than you do, they can outrun you even though they're slower. So that's why reaction time plays a huge part of drag racing too. And then there's also classes where you should run against an index. Let's say you should run 850, then you should go as close to 850 as possible, and you should not go quicker, because if you go quicker, then you're eliminated. And you run this in a set, like in a pair. So we usually start on Friday. The sportsman classes start on Thursday with qualifying. Then we run two and two together, but it still doesn't matter who wins or loses. You just qualify your own time. So the time you put on the board is the time that you qualify on. The time starts when you move away from the Christmas tree, like break that line. So even if you would have a reaction time of 2 seconds, that time would not be added to your time on the board. It starts when you break the beams, so to say. But that's how you qualify. You qualify for 2 days. When you're done with that, it's elimination. Sportsman classes usually start eliminating on Saturday, and we in the pro classes start eliminating on Sunday. And when there's elimination, they make a ladder. So depending on how you have qualified, you will then see who your opponent will be. So if it's, for example, a 16 ladder, in a pro class, the number 1 meets the number 16. And then you just move down from there. And in a pair, you have the Christmas tree light up, and you leave the starting line, and first to cross the finish line goes on to the next round. And then you just move up in this ladder that you built from the beginning, or so to say. And the one that's on top of that ladder in the end of the day, that's the winner.
It's time for a quick break. There are millions of potential products to buy, so how do you know which ones are worth your hard-earned money? Simple. You go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and explore those that will transform and improve your life. You'll find deals, listener exclusives, and special offers with some great companies. Recommendations are 100% honest and only on items Ian has tried or believes in. The companies showcased will make you a better man in all areas of your life. Simply go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and level up.
I love it. I love how there's so much into it, and that you can be the fastest and still lose. That you have to work on your cognitive ability. You have to work on your reaction time. You have to be able to deal with being physically able to hang on to a bike that's going at disgusting speeds. It's there's so much amazing things on it. But how do you start prepping yourself for this? Because I read an article where you said that you spend every waking minute trying to become a better athlete. You work hard every day to improve every aspect of your racing. What do you do in terms of the gym, when you arrive between your races? What are you doing to become a better athlete? To get faster off the line, to become physically able to to deal with the G forces you're going to be experiencing? Because when you see your video from your cockpit, holy hell, that is an amazing. But the forces on you to excel from that line. How do you start being physically capable to deal with that sort of thing?
Yeah. Just like you say, I work all the time to be, better version of myself and a better racer, and that's work that's never gonna be done. You just have to get a little better each day, and it's like with everything in life. Sometimes you move some steps forward, and then you have to reverse a little bit. But that's when you just pick it up and continue. It's so many stuff that goes into it. Like for me, it's about feeling good. Of course, I have to hit the gym. I have a personal trainer that I meet up with once a week, and then I have sessions on my own in between, because I want to be a very strong version of myself to be able to, physically handle it. And in the car, it's not the same. It's not the same thing that I actually have to have the muscles to hang on to something like it was with the bike, but you also have to think about the G forces. It's a lot of G forces on you, and if you have G forces, on your chest, so to say, they're also underneath your foot and want to push that foot off the pedal, and you have to be able to hold it down the whole time. Because in a car like the one we run that runs on nitromethane with 11,000 horsepower, if you start to get on and off on the throttle, that's when you hear a big boom behind you and you have an explosion and literally see dollar signs in the air. So it's really crucial for me and for my team that I can do my job in the car. I think for me, this has been something that's been going on, basically my whole life since I've been in racing, because everything I've done, no matter which class it's been, it's kind of prepped me to where I am at the moment. So I think if someone coming into Top Fuel that have never done drag racing before would probably have a whole other plan on how to get adjusted to it than I had, since I have done other stuff before. But it's the training part of it, of course, but it's also for me, eating well to be able to maintain my energy. It's something I struggled a lot with this year because I had COVID in the beginning of the year, and it's taken me a long time to get back. And to be honest, I'm not 100% well yet. I have to try and plan my day so that I can have a few micro naps in the day to get energy back. But it's you can't lay down and think that everything is gonna fix itself. You kind of just have to live with it and work around it, and it is getting better and better. So I think for next season, I'm gonna be in even better shape than I ever was during this season. But then it's also working on reaction time, for example, and that can be anything from exercises you do in the gym that are kind of explosive, but then also I have a Christmas tree training thing at home where I can actually sit with a pedal, and it simulates the Christmas tree that we have on the races, and I can hit that pedal as hard as I can, and I can actually see my reaction time. And when I do this, I know where I'm at, and that's the thing. I experimented with stuff like in the beginning of the year, like before the season started. Like, if I go to the gym in the morning, will my reaction times get better? If I drink
Cool.
coffee before, will my reaction times get better? Stuff like that. Because it's not going to be the same thing when you're in the car, because there's so much other elements around it, sounds, and you have to listen to other stuff, and there's just so much adrenaline that you can practice with that adrenaline when you're at home here. But if I have done my work at home and I do it as well as I can, and I also know what works best for me, then I'm at least in the best place I could have prepared myself for when I get into the car. But then, of course, as many times as I hit that throttle in that car, the better I get at it. Because, to be honest, it's really hard. Like, I was finding my reaction times on the bike, being good at that, and then moving over to the top fuel is a whole other thing. And it took me a long time before I started to get them down. But yeah, it's stuff like that, kind of just not leaving anything to just random, just trying to control everything that you can, to be sure that when you get to the track, you have done all the preparations that you possibly can.
I love it, because you're using that sort of analytical approach of taking away any potential, like, drain of your ability. You're kind of saying, well, when's the best time for the gym? When's the best time for that? And I've seen you talk about how, like, the mental side of it is actually the hardest part of it. And I love finding out, like, from people like you who do these amazing things, who can react quickly, what they do in the gym, like there's the game where there's the different lights, you have different points, and you have to try to turn them off as quickly as possible. And you realize, like, how poor a lot of people's, like, just reaction time to those kind of lights are. I mean, you're having to do this with, you've got this amazing vlog about how the car's set up and how you drive and stuff, and it's like, there's so much you have to be thinking about and prepping and holding on to and reacting. And like you're saying, if you're going on green, you've already lost.
Yeah.
How do you deal with this, like, as you arrive, because you've got to work with the pit crew to set up the car. You've got all these fans wanting to, come up and say how much you've inspired them. The crowd's roaring, you're feeling all the emotions. How do you keep in the zone? How do you center yourself to focus solely on your racing? Or do you think you need every part of it to become the racer you are?
I think I have to say, like, on the top fuel side, I'm still such a rookie. I'm still working on getting all my routine there and see what works the absolute best. When I raced with the bike, I had done it for a few years. In the beginning, Kim and I both raced bikes in the same class. It was super hectic and there was so much to do. So in between the runs, I did the clutch on both bikes, and there were work for us all to do all the time. And it was so stressful. So usually when they called us down to the line, we just jumped into our gear and we went down. So you really didn't have any time to think about anything. It was kind of just, you did what you had to do, and then you got on it, and then you ran. But then the last 2 years I ran in Super Street Bike, it was only me. I was the only one running, so Kim didn't run. And that made everything really different, because that made Kim be able to work on my bike solely. And what I did, of course, if anybody needed help with anything, I jumped in. But what I did then was, when I got back, I could sit down with my tuner. We could look at the run, look at the data, and I could explain to him everything that I felt. If I felt like, I think we could add more power in this gear because I couldn't feel the front wheel lifting, or I could tell him I had issues getting second gear in because the wheel was running so high. It took me longer to get it in than it usually should, or just stuff like that, or how the bike was feeling, or how the gears were feeling, or so on when I hit my shift points. And he could look at it, and he could hear what I said and the feeling I had, and he could look at the data and see what we could do there and how the bike had run, and we could actually make adjustment from that. And I also had time to take the GoPros out. I could look at the videos that I I always had onboard cameras, so I could see exactly how I moved on the bike, because sometimes you might feel that the bike is doing something, but then you look at it and you see it's actually you. Like you were maybe overcorrecting something a little bit, or maybe the wind was coming from one direction and you were sitting slightly, dispositioned, or so to say. So I had so much time to like analyze what I did and think about what we wanted to do to the run after. And this is when we had such an improvement in performance. Of course, we also had better stuff because we had made an enormous work of rebuilding engines, and we bought a new bike, and there was a whole lot of things. So it wasn't just that. But I think for me, that's when I was able to get the best as I ever could as a driver, because I had that time in between. But the years before, there were no time for that because I had to put everything into working on the bike. But now when I move into Top Fuel, it's new again. First of all, I didn't know the people I was going to work with from the beginning. Luckily, we got to know each other really quickly, and we really clicked. So we work extremely well together, and that has made like such a big thing for me, because it made it so easy for me to move over to a new team when I feel so comfortable with them and I can ask them about anything, and we can just have these open conversations about the car or whatever, and it just feels really easy and genuine. But I also have a lot of things to do in between. We pack the shoots. Like you said, there's fans waiting, and I always want to make sure I have time for them, and especially for kids. And, we do the fuel, which takes a long time, and it's a really heavy job, which people may not realize, because we do it usually inside the trailers, so people don't see us. But those jugs, they weigh about 30 kilos each, and we probably do 20 of them 2 or 3 times a day, and it's heavy. It's like we go from a run where we are exhausted, we get in and we have like a full body pump session in the trailer. So it's a lot of these things. But what I do now, like I said, I haven't totally found my exact routine at the track with the Top Fuel, but I always try to get some time in the car, like by myself or just with my team, when there's no people around, wanting an autograph signed or wanting to talk. I love that. I absolutely do. But it's also great for me to get a few minutes to myself before I jump into the car. If I'm super nervous, I put on a playlist that gets me really pumped. And like in TRF, I was really nervous, and that's what I did. I just took some time to myself, drank some water, I listened to my pump list, and we ended up winning the event. So something must have worked. At least I was on point with my reaction times, which was exactly what I was working on at the moment, and it just felt really good.
That's really impressive, because it shows how unique it is for because there's not a lot of people like you who could learn by using your intuition and saying, no, that felt slightly off, or that was maybe not giving me the power that I needed. And your team could bring out then could show you the data, and then you've got the balance of the analytical and then the intuition as well, and then to have the ability to kind of zone out and go and help the crew. Because I mean, in your videos, they show you how involved you are, how you're looking over it, etc. And then you're switching off and you're going off speaking to the fans. But then when you come back in, how you have to then mentally get prepared. And I think and the fact that you're only learning this, it's terrifying. It just shows you how amazing how far you can go with this, because you're doing this while you're running another business. Do you use a lot of visualization? While you're sitting waiting, are you kind of almost mimicking the movements of your hand and your feet, with your eyes closed while you're listening to the music? And because they say mental reps or visualizing activities is almost can mentally be the same kind of thing as actual physical reps of something. Do you do you involve visualization and things like that?
Yeah, but I have to say I do that mostly when I'm at home, or let's say we have warmed up the car, I usually sit in the car for a little bit before I go out, because we are waiting for the guys to work on the clutch in the back. And when he is done, he tells me that we should try the clutch. So I sit there so that we can make the setup right before I go out, which means I have a few minutes for myself in the car there. And that's also one of the times where I usually like visualize everything. I look at everything. And also when I'm in the lineup in the car, I feel the pedals, I feel everything, just feel it through and think about it. But what I've found is when I do this at home, because I don't have that much track time, so I kind of have to do it at home, and I kind of do it when I do the reaction time training. I feel very ready when I get to the track. But when I'm actually in the car, I don't want to overdo it, because I've been to events where I'm really nervous and I go through it in my head several times when I'm in the car. And that's usually when I mess up, because I'm kind of too much in my own head with trying to think about what to do. So usually when I'm nervous, I might run it over in my head when I'm in the tow truck, like 1 or 2 times. And then I just let it be. And I just kind of focus not on the actual movements, but like on thinking about how I should steer the car, like I'm thinking further ahead than just like the start line procedure, because the start line procedure, I know it will come by itself. I don't have to be in the car thinking about how to put it in reverse and how to do everything, because I do know that I know that part. Doing the licensing and being, really, really new at it, I did have to have to run this in my head right before too, because I hadn't sort of, locked it in my brain yet. But now I kind of feel like that part is just gonna flow once the car starts. So I'm focusing more on what I'm actually doing down track. And this is the same that I did with the bike, because like I remember, when COVID hit, we couldn't go racing for a long time. So it had been over a year when I went to sit on the bike for first time. On the trip up, I think we were on like an 8 or 9 hour road trip. And I just kept thinking, do I remember what to do? Like, started getting into my own head. Like, do I even remember how to go out to the burnout properly? Stuff like that. But the thing was, when we started up the bike, like there was no thought in my head about what to do. I just did it because it's there. So I think for me, this is of course different for everybody. But for me, I don't want to overdo it, because I can easily get too much into my head if I repeat it time after time after time just before the actual run. I would rather repeat it when I'm home or when I'm, hours before, days before. But then when I'm in the car, I kind of just let my intuition run. And that's usually what works best for me.
I love it, because that just shows, because you're like me. I mean, if I keep thinking about something, I will go mad. Like I'll talk myself out of it. I'll think, oh, I'm going to mess up. You get stuck into your own head, and I think
you kind of just have to trust yourself. Kind of like get into that mode that okay, I don't have to repeat this 100 times before the starting line, because I do know what it's like. Like I have done this enough times. Now I'm just secure in my own ability to do it, and kind of just like you said, like channel it and do it.
It's probably why you enjoy like filling up the fuel, packing the chutes. You're giving yourself a distraction away from it. You like going and speaking to the fans as well, because it lets you just zone out of the focus on it. Because I can imagine it must be quite terrifying, the thought sometimes, especially like you're saying, like coming back from COVID and going, I'm about to go on something that can potentially fire me down this length of track in 3 seconds, 4 seconds, Like, I mean, you listened to one episode where you talked about the unfortunate accident your boyfriend had, and, like that you'd seen him crash and you were terrified about it, but your first reaction was, okay, I need to do a run just to kind of get back onto it. To be able to do that shows your mental strength, to be able to like show the empathy and like make sure he's okay and speak to him in the hospital, etc. But to have the mental strength to be able to say, no, I need to get back on this. I just need a run to kind of get back on the horse to overcome that demon again. Because a lot of people would have said, no, that's just not for me. And then I think was it an accident you had on the bike?
Yeah. And the thing is with this, I mean, I've never been afraid to run either the car or the bike or anything I've ever done. I've never thought about. Of course, you know what can happen, and you're not just being how to say, you know the risks, but it's not ever something that I'm afraid of. And when I'm nervous, I'm never nervous about running the actual car or running the bike. I have to say, like, of course, getting back into the car or on the bike the first time for the season when you've been out of it for like 8 months, of course you have like jitter, and it's of course nervous because you haven't done it for so long, but I'm never afraid of it. But the nervous part for me is when it's actually race day. So like now when I get to the track, when you have had your first run, all the other runs after that, like during qualifying, I don't feel any nervousness. It comes on race day, because that's, when I know that the pressure is on for real, and that's, you just really, really want to be at the top of the podium at the end of the day, and you want to visualize that, and that's what gets you nervous. But just what you're talking about, like when Kim crashed, that was a horrible crash, and I was standing behind him when he crashed because I was going to run after him. So we saw it, and it took quite a long time before they could even confirm he was alive. I think it was like 20 minutes or so, and those 20 minutes were extremely hard, of course. And then getting to the hospital together, he had a big surgery because he broke his hip and his thigh bone in 2 places. All of that was like, it was the biggest accident I had been that close to. Of course, you've seen accidents, but it hadn't been someone that I love so dearly that's actually in the accident. So I kind of knew then that I have no idea how my brain is going to work in a month after this, if it's gonna make me scared of this in any way. So I don't want to take that risk. Like I want to jump on the bike as soon as possible to kind of like just show myself that there's no issue. And we went out there and we set a new personal best, and it was a great feeling. And I think it was a great feeling for Kim too. He was watching from the hospital, from like the wake up. He had a live stream running there, and he was also one of the guys that told me. I said to him, I think I should run, and he said, I think you have to. So we set it up and I went there. But then, like you said, I had my own accident a few months later, actually, or I think it was even 5 or 6 weeks after. The hard thing about that was I wasn't hurt in any way or so. I was just, scratch and bruises and stuff. But the bike was so damaged that I could not get back onto it. And, my leathers were ripped and everything. So I couldn't get back onto the bike. And it was the last race of the season. And I had just purchased a bike in US that I went over to race like 3 months after, which meant that I would have no way of being on a bike until I was going to the World Finals in US and running, over there for the first time ever on a bike I've never sat on. But that's kind of when you have to get into that mental stage that like, okay, this is not gonna beat me. Like I kind of never let those thoughts even get into my head. I was just kind of like, all right, it was shit, it happened, but we have this new thing that just, racing in US had been on my bucket list and something I would love to do for such a long time. And this was a happy time for me. So I was just like, I'm gonna get on the bike and we're gonna just set a new personal best or run as quickly as we can. And I'm not gonna let this, get to me. Like I just won't. So
I mean, I don't think you appreciate just how uniquely talented that is. To be able to just go to see something so horrific and then go, okay, I need to get back into this work. I'm going to do it for both of us. And then to go and smash a PB, to do something that would have mentally crushed a lot of people, to be able to do that and to share that passion with somebody and to find somebody that loves it. You build like cars and in your spare time together and go touring and stuff like that. And I think it's really difficult that to teach that, that ability to kind of go, okay, I had a bad run or whatever, but I'm not going to let it mentally get to me. What do you do when you've had a really terrible run, you've stalled on the line, or you've been beaten really badly by somebody. How do you kind of review the data? How do you look at what happened, shake it off, but learn from it?
Yeah, I think this is a really hard part about racing, but it's also something that you have to get really good at and work on. And to be honest, I still have work to do here too, because the thing is, when you have a bad run, which you will, I mean, you can't win all the races and you can't set records every run. So you will have bad events. And we had a really hard event on our last event this year. And the thing is, it's very easy to let it get to you. And I think, of course, it's all right to be, upset about it or like sad about it for a little while, but then you have to try and shake it off, because you have to focus on the next one. And if you get too stuck in, thinking about something that went wrong, or like what didn't work or so on, you're kind of missing opportunities to do better at next time. But something I also think is super important is you have to be critical of, from about yourself and about your team and about everything, because if you want to be better all the time, you can't have a bad run and come in and just be like, oh, that was shit, we try next time. You have to look at it like, what happened, why, what did I do wrong, what did anyone else do wrong, and not to like put blame on anyone. It's not about that. It's we have to learn where we can be better. So if we find that it's a part that was bad, then we know that, okay, we have to look into these parts. Are there more parts that are bad? Maybe we have to switch to another brand. Why did this part go bad? Is it something else we have to change, in the setup? If I messed up, having a bad reaction time or doing something wrong during the run, I have to look at my runs. Why did I have a bad reaction time now? Did I do anything else differently? Why did this happen? What distracted me? Or also like, how did I run? Did I mess up anywhere? Like, I want to know, because I'm, like I said, on this, I mean, on the super street bike, I'm sure I've never had a perfect run. And I think most racers know that perfect runs do not exist. I mean, our record setting European record run, yeah, we had a blower belt off and I was drifting towards the center line and miles per hour was way down. It was not a perfect run. Could have been, better. But that's the thing. You don't just go in and you'll be like, it's good enough, because good enough is not good enough. Like, you have to look at what you can do better as a driver or as a team, or to fix on the car or the bike or whatever. And I think that's what you have to put your focus when you have a shitty day or a shitty run or whatever. You have to put your main focus on, why was it a shitty run and what can we do to make it a great run the next one, instead of just letting it get to you mentally, because you know that you can do more than that. Like, it's there. I'm happy if I have a shitty run and I see that we did everything perfectly, then that's for real a shitty run, because then you don't know what to fix. But as long as you know what to fix, if you find an issue, then I'm happy, because I know that, okay, we can fix this. Like, I can do that better, or we could tune that better, or we could, change that part, or we could, whatever it is. As long as we find an issue, then I'm all right. Then you know that you can just move forward.
I love that. I love how you're sort of ironing out the creases of where you're not being as effective. You're looking at the car, you're looking at yourself. It's like, can I be a better athlete? Could I be better off the line? What's the data say? Could the parts be fixed? Replaced if something's malfunctioning. I love how you don't take it personally. You're just looking to become a better racer, and that is so unique. A lot of people would just bitch and moan and end of the world. You're kind of just going, what do I need to do? How do I become a better racer? Because when you mentioned,
and I mean, you kind of have to also, because it's not just about me. When we are there, of course, people see me as the driver. Usually, I'm the one, standing there signing an autograph. But it's so much more than just me. It's the whole team, and we're several guys, and there's so much going into it. So if I mess up, I let them down. So that's why I also have to be, I let myself down because I want to be the best version of myself. But I also let them down, and that's the thing. When everybody strives to do their absolute best, whether it's me, or it's the heads guys or the clutch guys or the bottom end guy or the tuner, or whatever it is. When everybody strives to be the absolutely best at what they do, that's when you can find that at least close to perfection. Because like I said, I don't think perfection exists in this, because then it would be boring, then you can't do more. But but the thing is, that's when you get these absolutely record setting runs, or wins that just feels amazing, when everybody pulls the work in. And you don't want persons that kind of, if something messes up, that kind of says it wasn't me, or I couldn't have done anything different. You want people to look at what they did and see if they could have done it better. And I think if you have that mental, like, if you think about it in that way, that you want to kind of find an issue, or you want to kind of find something that you can get even better, that's when you keep moving forward all the time. Because if you just look at what you do and you feel that it's perfect all the time, someone else is gonna outrun you, because they probably found something that they can do a little bit better.
Because I mean, a lot of people, like who are maybe like hobbyists, would come in and they would take part in the sport, do their races, and then say, okay, and then they'll come back to it in a couple of months when, just before the first season, and get the car ready and stuff like that. And I love how, like, you're always looking to be a better athlete, always looking better cognitive speed, faster reaction speed, to become a better athlete, But the fact that you're doing this while running a business, it's phenomenal. I mean, you're kicking asses, you're winning things, you're got the fastest record in Europe. Like, these are phenomenal things. And for you to still consider yourself a hobbyist or a rookie and run a business, how do you deal with that? Like, how have you found running the business? Has the marketing side of things helped you in terms of like approaching sponsors? Has it helped you like with your social media? Is it almost like you need the both sides of it? Like, how have you found running a business, working full time, and doing this?
Yeah, the thing is, I would love to work, like I said, with drag racing full time, but as we're not getting paid to run. So, like, a lot of people that have seen, they see Formula One on TV, or they see this, other forms of motorsport. They see the factory drivers getting a big paycheck when they show up at a race.
Far
For
too
us,
much.
yeah, for us it's different. I don't get paid to race. I pay to race. So I pay a huge amount of money per year to be in the car. So for me, I mean, you could buy a house for these kind of money, like really nice ones, like every year. But the thing is, I work with a lot of great sponsors and companies to be able to get these money together, so I can be in the car. But there's no money left over for me to live off. So I still put in a lot of my own money every year to, be out there on the track. But I also have to work really hard to be able to, pay my bills at home and everything. So the thing was also, I'm an electrician from the beginning, and that's what I did for many years. But then I worked as a store manager on this electric and plumbing company, um, and I was, managing several people, and being away for sponsorship meetings or racing or so on started getting hard. I did have time, to take out from that, so I never wanted it to affect my work. But that's where I mentally kind of felt like I don't want to be doing something half-hearted, and I don't want to have the people that I work with to eventually maybe suffer for me being away. So that's when I decided I had to open my own business and work for myself, to be able to schedule my meetings and my racing as I could. And I got the question from another company here that I had helped a bit with marketing, if I wanted to start working for them. And this came like in a really good time for me. So I asked them, instead of being an employee of you, is it all right if I start my own business and we work together instead? So that's what I did. So they were my first client. And then the company that I worked with before, when I was the store manager there, they also wanted help with marketing. So that was like my second client that I signed on. And then this has kind of changed and grown, and become different during these years. A few companies that was a really big client because they need a lot of work, set up websites and start all the social media and everything. They have gone down to being a smaller client because now they just need maintenance, and I help them with that. And then I have gotten new clients on board, and I help them. So it's a lot of hard work, but the thing is, I have to do it to be able to live and still work on this dream. The marketing was, I don't have a marketing degree or anything, but I had done it for so many years for my own company. And I have done, all of the online courses and stuff that you could take from, still working a full-time job and not having to drop out and leave for school. And then also the company that I worked with from before, I worked 9 years for them, and I think for 5 years I did all of their marketing too. So I did have a solid foundation in the marketing works so from before. And when I kind of announced that I was opening my own marketing company, I got several clients that just, I have never done any advertisement, but they asked if I was open for doing work for them. So that it kind of just really worked out really well for me. And now I'm just kind of, working my way in that. But of course it helps with my own racing too, because when I do marketing for different companies, I learn a lot all the time because the algorithm, everything is changing. So to work with it on a daily basis just makes me be able to work with my own sponsors even better. So of course it helps me in my racing too, but to be honest, it's mainly to stay alive.
Yeah, that's a perfect answer. But that's the thing. I mean, I work full time in education, and I certainly wasn't my career path. But it pays me to buy a decent mic, to buy a decent laptop. But it's like it lets you do it, and sometimes that's all it needs to be. It's like, and I think that's like you're saying. It's you're always looking to improve yourself in that. But if you need something that pays the bills, you're always looking to be a better racer, and like the likes of Kobe and all that. They were never satisfied. No matter what happened, they were always wanting to get up and train and fix things and that. But they get paid millions of dollars. We need to put food on the table. We need to pay for your house.
And I mean, the marketing part of my racing is also so big. Like working with companies and social media and everything of that, I do really, really enjoy that, and it's such a big part of my racing. It's just that when I do it on my own company, usually, if I work with my racing, I can work for 5 hours and then I look up and I'm like, oh shit, I thought it was 20 minutes because it's my racing. But then if I do the exact same thing for a company, I'm very aware that it has been 5 hours. Like I still do the work, and like I know how to do it and everything like that. But it's just that it doesn't set my soul on fire. So that's the thing. That's why I would love to work solely with drag racing, because that's where I'm happy. To be honest.
I'm sure that's coming, because as your social media sort of empire grows, as your amazing achievements, and as your sort of encouragements, inspiring other people, more and more people are learning, and I think it's going to become a better known sport in Europe because it's been a kind of global powerhouse in like America and things like that, and it's only recently kind of growing into the into the Europes, around this area, because it's something I didn't.
At least on the social media part or so on. I mean, it's always been, drag racing has had like an astonishing track record, so to say, like in Europe, but it hasn't. The European drag racers haven't been really out there on like social media or working marketing on the same way, but they are getting better. Like it's improving all the time.
If only there was a lady who could teach them marketing. I mean,
so I have to start a course.
So what advice would you give then to, say, somebody who was wanting to get into it? Because as the people are realizing now that we need to have the social media platform, that we have to sell ourselves, that we have to engage with the fans and stuff like this. For people who would like to get into racing, what advice would you give them about, finding a team, working well with a pit crew, to selling your career, your journey, your racing online, to build a fan base? How is it just a case of just going and enjoying it and just letting your enjoyment show and build a following through that? What advice would you give to somebody who's just interested in taking part in the sport and potentially making, following in your footsteps?
Yeah, I think especially when you talk about the social media part of it, one thing that I have found that races here in Europe have been, less great at has been to share content all year round. Usually it was if we have 6 events a year, then they make 6 posts a year saying that I've been at an event, here is the recap. But the thing is, on social media, people want to see the real side of you. They don't just want to see your race car. They want to see who's inside, how they live, like what you do on your spare time. For me, when I started my social media, it was never about growing a following or anything like that. In the beginning, it was just sharing what I was doing. I shared what I loved, what was going on, and I also thought that okay, this might be boring, just working in the garage on the bike, but this is what I do, so I'm gonna show it. So when we worked on the bike in the garage, we started showing that okay, we are putting the head together, we are adjusting valve clearance or whatever we did, we just shared it on our social media channels. And I was impressed by how many people were actually really interested in that, because from the beginning you kind of have this mindset, oh, they just want to see our performance on track, but the thing is they want to see what goes on behind closed doors.
Mhm.
And I think the more you share about stuff that are a little, exclusive, like uh, if you're on a test session, show them behind the scenes, show the things that you won't see on the live stream, show them the exclusive content that they can just see on your page, that is how we set up the car, or how what our strategy is, or whatever it is. Like, try and share more things that you might think would be boring. Try and share it, see what works. Because for me, like I said, it was never about building a following. I just started sharing stuff, and then we saw the following go up. And when I started having a bigger following, that's when I found out, like, okay, this is a fantastic platform for my sponsors. And that's when I started to working with brands to see, like, all right, let's say Rotor turbos. We wanted to have a Rotor turbo on our bike. We had been working with Rotor and Tile for years. What better way for them to, get return on investment from our partnership than to show everybody what we actually do with this new turbo and how it can improve our performance on track. So we started with, showing when everything got home, how does the turbo look like, what's different from the other one we had, and explaining stuff about it. Then we did some videos showing when we mounted it, how we made changes for it. We built a new custom exhaust and why we did that and stuff like that. Then when we got to track and we set a new record, like a new track record, first event, everybody was kind of even more happy for us because they knew how hard we had worked to get that new engine combo and setup and everything. And for Sona as a partner to be along for all of that, not just oh, we ran a record, we have a Sona rotor, but like people could actually see the difference it made from the other brand we used before to when we swapped for this, and the changes we made, like to see our on track performance. I think it's stuff like that that can get real tight bonds with your sponsors. And the same, we were running like a new turbo that they hadn't really launched on the market yet. Like this was like the first like the first version of it, so to say. So we were trying stuff and we were sending them data, and they could look at that data, and then they could make an even better one to put on market for people to use. And we could see, just year after, that several riders were changing to the Sonorotor. And I would think that we had an impact in that. And that's when you can see what you can do with your social media channels. And then it starts to be, like you can run it as a business. You see, you use it as a tool in your how to say, like, racing program.
No, I love that. I mean, I love how it sort of stems from your passion and your love of the sport. Like you're wanting to share all the fun stuff you do, and like, oh, we've just got a new turbo on our machine, and we want to share it, and then people get involved into it and want to know the racing. And I think that's the beauty of social media and that now is the world's a smaller place, so we want to find out more
Yeah.
about it. So when we find amazing people like yourself, we kind of go, okay, what makes her her? Okay, she's got this amazing race. Oh wow, look at that video. Okay, I want to know a bit more about the car. Oh right, I want to know what the pit crew are doing there. I want to know more. And then when people come to and see how nice you are to them, and like how you're that's just an extension of your personality, and you make the time for them. They come to a race, they get inspired, they maybe try it. It's amazing how you're doing this, and you're running a business, and you're in a relationship, and you're to even call yourself like a rookie. I think it's amazing how you're not aware of how truly awesome you are at this, and I think that's something that probably makes you you. You're always looking to get better, but you're also just having a great fun with this, and you're wanting to make this just a passion, something you can do for your life. You're not looking at this for fame and money. You're doing this because you love it, and there's not many people in a lot of sports nowadays, sadly, who are like that. There's a lot of people who get lost in the journey when they start making a bit of money, get a bit of attention. You're doing it the right way. You should be super proud of what you're doing.
For me, I've been at the racetrack and racing for 20 years. So I've been doing this for a long time before I was ever on social media or, had sponsors or did it. I've always done it just because I love it. And then the thing for me is also, I don't have the money myself to run on this level. So for me, it's absolutely crucial to have sponsors and great partners. And then I owe it to them to find the best ways possible we can work together and how to, make these connections and make these investments work. Because the thing is, sponsorship, I kind of cringe when I see people write on social media, there's sponsorship possibilities available on our team, contact us. It's like, it doesn't work like that, because the thing is, a sponsorship it's a partnership. You work together. You're basically hired by that company to do work for them to bring the money back, because people will not give you money just to give you money, because they want return on investment. You wouldn't even put in money if you didn't know you get more back. Otherwise, might as well just put your money in the bank and have them grow there. So if someone invests in you and your racing operation, it's because they see potential and they want to grow, and you have to show them that potential. You have to show them how you can make sales for them, how you could make their company grow, or whatever it is that their goal is. Like, that's the important thing is, and that's when the business part of racing gets so important. And I know that many of the big teams, for example, in US, they have people doing this. They have people that are the best at signing these, like putting these deals together and what to do for the teams. But I don't have the money to have someone hired to do this. So I just have to do it myself, and I have to be good at it. So that's another thing. Like, I see that this is something I have to do for my racing, and I have to be good at it. Then I look at it the same way as I have to be the best driver possible. I have to be the best at this possible to make the dream happen. So it kind of all goes together.
No, it's a fantastic answer, and it shows you that life has a way of thinning out people who are in it for the wrong reason. That because you need to be the best driver, you need to be the best athlete you can be, the best person you can be, that to just do this as a hobby, it shows you that you're willing to put the effort in. And I think that really comes out in, like your videos, into your racing, etc. You're doing it for the right reasons. And I think the universe has a way of thinning out people who are just in it for the fast back and stuff like that. And this is why I'm so glad to find people like you, who I know can inspire people, and we can learn about stuff that we're maybe not sure about, but we can pick off these unique things that you do that makes you, and utilize these in our own life. But what do you want your brand or your evolution to be? Just to do this full time? Or do you want to continue to keep inspiring, to keep opening up eyes onto the platform, to kind of, become like an ambassador for the sport in this new modern age of social media and things?
The thing is, for me, I don't think I would be able to do it as well if my focus would be to inspire or to be an ambassador or so on. I think when you do something you really love and you want to do it the best you possibly can. And like for me, I want to win championships. I want to be the best. I want to, I have of course lower goals than that too. It's not like I have some sort of really, but the thing is uh, you have to aim high and then set low goals on the way. And for me, of course, wanting to race full time, that's one of the goals I have. Winning a championship, of course, is one of the goals, and there's a lot of those things. And I then hope to inspire and motivate people on the way, but that's not why I do it. I don't do it for anybody else, to be honest. I do it for me. I do it because I love it. I do it because it's what makes me happy, and it's what drives me to do anything in life, to be honest. And then that I get to inspire people, and that I get to motivate or be that person, it just really makes me happy. And of course, if someone wants me to do something around that, I have I've done work with the mentor stuff or so on. I'm absolutely for it, but that's not the reason why I'm here. I want to do it because I want to be the best driver, and I just love to do it. So
yeah, I bet if more people did that, actually, and just did it for themselves, and everything else just became an offshoot of it. You didn't go out to inspire, but you just inspired people by you just doing. Yeah. If more people did that, I think the world would be a better place. I can't believe we've been on for an hour and a half. I know we're
I'm
way.
Sorry. When it's racing, it's easy to talk for me.
It feels like, you're somebody I could speak to for hours, and I would love to get you back on, and and we can go further into things. But for people who, what would you say to people as their message until we can do a round two, until we can, really focus on things and get you back in and join with other people and stuff? What would you want people to take as a message from this? Is it just to live your passion? I mean, or what do you think people should remember from this interview?
Yeah, of course. I think live your passion and don't be afraid to try and go for those high goals. Like I said, just because it hasn't been done before doesn't mean it can't be done. I remember, and I've mentioned this before in some interview, that something that kind of stuck with me was when I was in US and I was gonna race on the World Finals on the new bike I had bought, and I hadn't been on a bike since my crash. I spoke to another Swedish guy that was there racing, and I told him, like, to be honest, I'm nervous. I'm not nervous to get on the bike, but it's just I'm nervous because these guys are the best in the world. Like, they are the top of the top, and they are so incredibly good at what they do, and I just don't want to mess up. And he just like it was the simplest thing ever. He just said, like, if they can do it, we can do it. Like, what's separating them from us? What makes them so different? Like, they're not special in any way that they have something that makes them be able to do this that you don't have. Like,
Yeah.
they were rookies at one time too. Just if they are able to do it, you will too. Just go out there and do it. And to be honest, even if they weren't able to do it, you might still be able to do it too. Just go for it. So it's like, I think it kind of stuck with me, and I remember thinking about this when I was gonna take my license in the Top Fuel, and getting a little nervous. And I just felt like there's so many people before me that have done this. So why shouldn't I be able to? Like, there's nothing stopping me. Just go for it. So
Fantastic answer. I love that. And until we can get another one, until we can go really get into things, how can people keep in touch? How can we follow you on social media? Like, what's your Facebook, Instagram stuff? Like, you've got a cracking website, some amazing videos on YouTube. How can we find you on these platforms?
Oh, thank you. I'm constantly working on all that and working on building my YouTube channel up too. But you can find me on both YouTube and Facebook on Ida Zetterström Drag Racing. Then on Instagram, I have a name that's Dragsterfia in Swedish, but it's Dragster FIA. That's easy to find it. But if you search Ida Zetterström, you will find me there too. So yeah, that's where I'm mostly active, Instagram, and then I try to work Facebook and YouTube as much as possible. But you can also see my website, and on my website is Ida Zetterström.com. Over there you find like videos and other podcasts and sort of those kind of stuff if you want to read more. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, that's it for another week, and thank you for listening. It's now time to take what you've learned and use it to develop and enhance your life with the key points mentioned. Listen, try it, embrace it, use it, and crush it. Now's your time to hit that next level in your life. If you liked this episode, then please leave a comment on the show notes or a review of the show on your podcast platform. Everything helps evolve the show. Until next week, keep seeking the next level in your life.